Hello and welcome to The Good, the Bad and the Worst, a podcast where we review movie trilogies and decide which film was the best, which film was the worst, which ones are in between. But today we're looking at a sequel to a trilogy we've already done. We'll get to it. So I'm your host Griner. Joining me today are Conan and Luke. How are we, boys?
Always good. Always good.
That's good. So we're covering Prey. The fifth movie in the Predator series?
Fifth official one, yeah.
Fifth official one.
AVP, but
Yeah,
no one does.
No, as they shouldn't. So Prey came out just a few days ago, straight to streaming. Boys, how did you? Well, what do I want to get from you? What was your initial? How are you guys feeling going into this movie about Prey? You know, we just not that long ago did the Predator, the Predator quadrilogy. How did you guys feel coming into Prey about the Predator franchise in general?
So that's the thing. We did Predator 2 months ago. I feel like
Yeah.
it was my first time ever watching any of those films. So
crazy.
this year is all Predator for me. So I watched them 4 films. I was not as much of a fan as you guys. I thought you had rose-tinted glasses for the old ones, but there was stuff there that I enjoyed, and I was intrigued after the last one as well where it would go. And it wasn't until that podcast I remember Conan mentioning that they're doing a new one. It's called Prey. It's this. There was no trailers for it at that time. I think a trailer came out shortly after it for it. When hearing about that, it sounded really cool. Then when I heard that it was coming to like Hulu, which isn't in Australia, obviously, but Disney Plus in Australia, streaming only, no cinema release, I was instantly worried and was just like, well, that's not going to be good at all. And out of nowhere, it's really just caught me by surprise when I started seeing the really good feedback on my social media, like feeds, just people praising the film. And then seeing like the Rotten Tomatoes score, and I was quite hyped to sit down and watch it. And caught me by surprise. I thought this movie would. It came out really quick, it seemed, and then
Yeah, as a lot of streaming ones do. Like Netflix is notorious for this. You only learn that they're doing a show like a month before it, and then it drops, and they really plug it hard.
Yep.
And this was announced. This was because I think originally when this was like this had been in the works for a few years, and it was going to be a normal release, but then everything changed. You know, we had COVID, we had cinemas just dwindling, and so I think it was made pretty early on.
Disney buying 20th Century Fox.
Exactly. So there was all this thing. So I think it just got lost in all of that, and pretty quickly just put towards their back catalogue. But similar deal. I came into as soon as I heard about this, I was excited. Like I saw that Dan Trachtenberg was attached, and 10 Cloverfield Lane was great.
Yep.
So I had faith. I think they had learned a lot from the absolutely terrible reception of The Predator. So I kind of looked, and it seemed like they were distancing themselves from that by calling it Prey, not Predator 5, not Predator Genesis. So, and then you saw that they all had a whole net, like it was pretty much a whole Native American cast. There was no whitewashing. There was no trying to get around it. They were taking risks kind of. And I was really hyped for it. And similar deal, like my social media, it seems like this movie's kind of been this weird, like focus of everybody over the past week where all the film Reddits I follow, they've all been talking about it. They're all excited. The podcasts I listen to have talked about it. Empire did a thing on it.
Yeah.
It seems like IndieWire did a big stunt, which like several articles, which is weird for a direct-to-streaming film that was not talked about 3 months ago.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like there hasn't been that great a marketing around this movie. Like it feels like they almost tried to just get it out there, just bury it, just let it come out and dwindle and do nothing. But I think there's been a bit of a cult following around this movie, which is nice because it surprised me too. Do you think? I can't help but wonder if in the shadow of Maverick, if those deals hadn't already been made to release it to streaming, if we would have got a cinema release for this film.
I think if this film hadn't started its inception several years ago, it would have been really different. Yeah. I think it's like, these deals and these release things happen years in advance, and they're big processes. So I can only imagine all these decisions were done and committed long before we had any idea of what would happen.
Yeah.
But you're right. If it was announced a year or two later and it was still being out, I think we would be seeing a cinema thing. And I wish we had, like, this movie is really cinematic.
Yes.
Really is.
it doesn't feel at all like, like films in the past year have sort of felt pretty. You can sort of feel the COVID there. You can feel the smaller locations. You can feel the excessive green screen. You can feel the fact that there is more constraint. And they did something smart with this where it never feels that way. It's incredibly big and open and cinematic, but they obviously have a small group of people because of the story.
Yeah.
And you never feel the limitations, which I would have loved to see that. I would love to see that in a cinema. But
Yeah, I'm kind of disappointed that it didn't get that cinema release because I think it deserved it. So I guess let's just get straight into it. I was really surprised by this movie. It was a very good homage to the original Predator, I thought. How did you guys feel about this movie?
Grant, were you excited for this? I feel like, because Luke said you didn't really know much. You weren't really expecting too much.
Not until this past. I didn't even watch the trailers. Like I sent the links to you guys because I knew you guys were Predator fans.
Yeah.
I didn't really check it out, and then once I saw the score and the feedback, I was like, oh well, this would be fun to watch, and the sounds of it was really cool. And like I love 10 Cloverfield Lane.
Yeah.
I've never watched the original Cloverfield still, but I watched 10 Cloverfield Lane, and I thought it was fantastic.
Yeah.
And yeah, like. I'll let Grana get into it first, but yeah, it took me by surprise. And then, like the 2 days before watching it, I was super hyped. All of a sudden, I was like, "Oh man, Prey tonight!" I was like, "Yes!" I was super pumped for it.
Yeah,
so, yeah.
I mean, I had a very similar experience to you, Luke. Like seeing that it was coming straight to streaming, I'm like, "Oh, is this not going to be what I hope it is?" But yeah, I like 10 Cloverfield Lane. I had some faith in Trachtenberg. And I love the concept of it, like setting a Predator movie during, what was it, the 1700s, very little technology, and with just this, against this tribe. And it turns, like, it's a great idea. I really hope this launches us into an era of Predator through time. Like, give me a World War I Predator, give me a Samurai Predator, give me...
Amen.
There's so many things they can do, and I would love to see them do it.
I think we talked about this in our podcast.
Yeah.
It was a franchise that you can dip into more and more, but not as a continuity.
Yep.
And this film is the perfect example of that. Just they have that one scene. Sorry, spoilers for Prey if anyone's listening and hasn't seen it. But they have the reveal in the end where they get the flintlock pistol, and that's the same flintlock pistol that Danny Glover gets in the second Predator. And so there's this
that flew over my head.
Yeah, I didn't notice it at first, but I was like, why do I recognize that?
Yeah.
Like, why is there a gun? There's a big thing. And then I read about it and it clicked again. But it's that sort of that connection, right? It's like, okay, it is the universe. This is all one thing, but there's never a weird sense of this is Dutch's like ancestor or something. And
no, thank God.
It's a nice way to do this type of movie too, because you can just, they can drop the baggage of the Predator. No problem. Let's just move on to the next one. And then going forward, let's just, give a bunch of, talented new directors who, maybe don't have a big schedule of movies coming up or whatever, but have promise, give them a Predator movie to make. They can all feel different, be different. If the one before it wasn't as good or to your taste, that's okay, because the next one's going to be completely different. I love that idea. Whether that's palatable to a movie studio, I'd probably not, but it's a nice thought.
Yeah, sorry, you go. Yeah.
I was just going to say, because that's the thing, obviously with the Predator movies, it doesn't follow the same characters. It's a different group each time with a different sort of Predator each time. And so initially when I finished Prey, I was like, oh, I wonder if we get a Prey 2, and follow this character or something. But I didn't even consider a samurai Predator film. That would be dope. 100% go through time and tell these different stories. And I read a thing that Trachtenberg said the reason it was going straight to streaming was Disney wanted to use this as an example that big, blockbusters can be successful through streaming. So I hope it does really well. I don't know how you gauge that. Obviously, just
what's the metric?
Numbers, but it's not
it's so hard.
It's not like Disney's oh man, we're rolling in it now, because of people watching it. I don't know, but hopefully it's successful for them. I really want it because it is great.
Yeah, it's I guess boding well at the moment because of all this sort of buzz around it. It's not just the general social media; it's also film sources. It's also film journalism that seems to be responding, because they all seem to have the same thoughts of us. It's this is a Predator film coming out. This is a big deal. We all love Predator because the first one's a classic.
Yeah.
So I have a lot of hope that they see that and they go, okay, the reception's been positive in that sense, and they'll see the viewer hours and go, yeah, it's people are watching this movie. Whether or not we're getting, the 1 billion eyes in the first week, I don't know. I don't know what is good for a streaming release, but
it's hard to know. And I wonder if this groundswell behind it is enough, because maybe that's what gets the people who wouldn't otherwise have Disney Plus to buy in. Like, it's tapping into a different audience to the normal Disney viewership. It's not tapping into the MCU fans. It's not tapping into the the people who like The Little Mermaid or whatever, but it's bringing in a different audience who are looking for good quality horror movies or something like that. Like, the metrics around streaming are so different to what we're used to. It's hard for us to know how they're going to make these decisions, but yeah, like you say, I hope it bleeds more.
It's tricky as well because it's Hulu that technically released this, right?
Yeah, true.
In America, it's Hulu on Hulu only. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know I don't know how the licensing works in other countries. I don't know if it's like Hulu leases to Star, which is a part of Disney here, or if it's literally like Warner Brothers owned by Disney goes, well, we have our own in Australia, so we'll do that. And so my point is, I don't know what Hulu's marketing was like in America. Their marketing might have been really big for it there.
True.
And and maybe that's why there's this sort of reception online, because most of it's America centric and they're seeing it. Whereas in Australia, it might have just gone under the radar. But do you guys reckon this has even if this does well, do you reckon this is a franchise we see in the future? Like, is this like Bond, that every couple of years you get a Predator film and eventually we'll have 20 of them, or like a Marvel? Does Predator have the staying power?
Probably not. I don't know. I just think you can do a lot with it, right? Like, we talked about in our Predator podcast how the first Predator movie is kind of like this send up of action movies at the start, and then it turns into this kind of horror film at the end. And this movie is kind of similar too, right? Like, the start, you're learning about the Comanche tribe and it's this survival movie, and then it kind of turns horror at the end as well. And like, you can make a bunch of really interesting movies about that. If you want to go to World War One, make a war movie for the first 2/3, and then have the last third be a horror movie. Like, that would be dope. Nobody's doing that stuff. That would be cool. We need more alternate history.
Absolutely. And that's the thing, I feel like Predator would kind of be unique in today's cinema. Even though the Predator came out only 4 years ago, it seems like it came out 40 years ago. Like, it's this weird thing that we've gone through that much in cinema since then, that I don't know, this felt unique, kind of like watching it. So, like, just to get out there, like, I love this film. Like, I really, really dug this film. Obviously, I feel like this is better than all of the Predator films.
We'll get to the ratings at the end, and that's a big call,
but like, I adored this film. The cinematography in it, just the aesthetics. I felt like the Predator was threatening in this. I don't know. I didn't really feel like that in the others, and I talked about that in the Predator podcast. That I felt like the Predator was kind of a joke, and I didn't take it seriously. In this one, my first note was like, it did this thing that the original one did, and I remember we lamented that fact. I wish we didn't see the spaceship at the start. I like seeing it through the clouds, where she has this vision of like this Thunderbird thing, but then I don't like the one of it. You clearly see it's a spaceship dropping it off and flying away, because I was looking at it as like, imagine like if you haven't watched the Predator films, a lot of people these days haven't, see this on Disney Plus. It's on the home screen when you go on there. It's basically like a reboot of this series, going back in time, watching this for the first time. I feel like, again, it would have been so much cooler being like, what is out here? Like, I understand, like, we know obviously, but I feel like seeing it come out of the spaceship and everything like that, instead of just being like, what made these tracks? It's doing this, and then the vision of it like killing the bear and being draped in the blood, like being like a first reveal of its whole figure sort of thing, is so cool and so badass. And I kind of wish that it had done that, but it did the thing again where it showed the spaceship dropping him off and the cloak, which is fine. It still kept suspense, I feel like. But yeah, it's just one little nitpick.
So it's a pretty unnecessary shot, right? Like the Thunderbird scene does everything that scene does and more. Like, it's just not necessary. But yeah, what a cool Predator movie. I really like that they were happy to pare back the Predator. Like, I'm glad this wasn't the same Predator we had in Predator 1. I'm glad, the half a mask on it, like a skull shaped mask, is super cool. Like, and just the change up in the weapons, like having physical little arrows that it fires and
instead of the laser cannons. I loved it.
It was all very well designed. I really enjoyed that.
It works so well, as a prequel, because it expands that universe, right? It shows again. We already know there are different Predators, but we see another one again. He's a little bit bigger, it seems. He's a little bit more like his weapons are different, so we wonder about their technology. Like, I've read a lot of discussions about plot holes about this, talking about how like the nature of what the Predators do. What are the rules of engagement? Why do they sometimes not kill them, but then sometimes they just slaughter whoever they want with all their weaponry? But I think what that does really well expands that idea with this Predator of, like, it's almost like this arrogant younger one where it has all these things, and sometimes it just takes its cloaking off and picks a fight. Sometimes it'll disappear and then stalk you again.
Yeah.
It's a really interesting, like, it's rougher. It feels a bit rougher. It feels like this Predator could be younger or wild. And the rules don't make sense because it almost doesn't know that what it's just kind of like there to kill more than anything.
Yeah. Yeah, and you kind of get that. There's the big fight between, I can't remember what his name is, but her brother and the Predator, and it's Tubby. Tubby. It's a really sick fight, and he's really getting the upper hand on this Predator, and then he almost cheats, right? Like, he turns on his cloaking, and just kind of goes the easy way, right? Whereas instead of going mano against this guy, like, and
like they always hinted that with they hinted it in Predators where there's the samurai fight, and it's like, okay, so there is this sense of honor and this code for the Predators, whatever that is. But we see it more here. It's like he keeps wanting to engage with people. Like when he engages with the trappers, he's got no cloaking and he's fighting them all like hand to hand.
Yeah.
But we know at any time he could just like run off, wait. And it just expands enough without ever being like, it never brings in stupid rules. It never brings in, never jumps the shark with it. It's just, okay, we learn more about this race. We learn more about the nature of it. And that's kind of exactly what you want from a Predator. You want these, or from a sequel or a prequel, you want expansion but never rewriting. You never want the mystery to be taken away.
Yep.
And I think this movie nailed all of that. It even did the great thing that reminded me of Terminator. How Terminator 2 has all the same lines and callbacks to the original, but it redoes them right. It's got "come with me if you want to live," but they change who says it. And it does it here. It's got if it bleeds, we can kill it.
There's no one. You are one ugly.
No, that's true. They didn't do that, which maybe they should have.
Kind of good. It probably wouldn't suit them.
But they had a nice homage, and it worked in this context because that's not like a super specific word or language. It's just like, if it bleeds, we can kill it. That's the Predator in a nutshell, basically.
Do you guys agree? I feel like this Predator, like the actual Predator himself, this was like the coolest looking one. I didn't feel like he looked cheesy. I felt like he looked badass, like intimidating, or I don't know if it's just the effects in old ones or not. I feel like even the Predator a few years ago, it went ridiculous with the ginormous super Predator or whatever.
Yeah, we don't talk about that one.
This one, like the outfit, the look of him, like it looked, like it didn't look CGI. It was like obviously prosthetics in this costume, and like the skull mask and everything. I just thought this was the coolest looking thing. I was like, man, that is a cool like alien. But
I like the original Predator design. I think it was really cool and creepy. Yeah. I mean, has it aged great? Maybe not. Like, it's not perfect by any means. His helmet feels kind of top heavy for the size of the guy and stuff sometimes, I think. And this one's a lot leaner, and he feels very primal, this Predator. Like, he feels...
That's what...
Yeah, which is cool. Like, I really like it, and it fits well with the rest of them, like the themes in the movie and the setting. But... I like this design is great, and I like the questions it opens up about what is Predator like. How did Predator technology grow over time compared to human technology? Because this is, 300 years before the other Predator movies. They're way more advanced in that time than what this one was. What does it look like between then? Like, it opens up all these opportunities to show, a samurai Predator might be wearing a wooden mask. Who knows?
Like, legit, you get like a Middle Ages one or something, and it's this really basic sort of... there is so much potential, and it's an age-old story of a threat we don't understand. Like, that's essential to horror, and every horror movie dips back into that. And two forces fighting for life is essential to action. Like, these movies are kind of primal in that sense. Like they're the most basic ideas that work. And it would be great. And there's a great subtext that you can lean into all of them. Like you were saying before, Grana, how the first one kind of parodies action and then delves into horror here, and how it kind of undermines that genre by being like, these guys can be killed by this.
Yeah.
And like this movie has a lot of questions of what makes a predator, what makes prey, like who's hunting who, this pursuit of conquest and war. Like there's all these interesting topics you can explore in this dynamic. And like, yeah, the idea of honor, the idea of violence. I think I talked about this in the Predator pod, but this movie reminded me of it again, where by having a sense that quite often the Predator actually isn't unstoppable. The trappers like get a decent hand on it sometimes. Tarbay fights him really well.
Yeah.
You really do get a sense of these people who have, the Comanche Nation, they were like had a very strong culture of war and conflict. And so that's sort of why they're so good at this. And that's interesting, like what that breeds, what that can do, how that can beat this thing. It's kind of fascinating.
I love the hand-to-hand combat stuff that we get in this, like, or not hand-to-hand, but tomahawk and all this sort of stuff. Even like her taking out like the Frenchman with the tomahawk, like that.
Yeah, it's a good scene.
That scene is so good, man.
Cool. That's the coolest weapon I have ever seen. A tomahawk on a rope.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's so simple, but they make it look so cool. I feel like that weapon you'd be hurting yourself a lot in real life.
I want to say it's useless. Yeah, you would never be able to do it like that.
She brings it back like Mjolnir. She's just like catches it. I'm like, oh, that's cool. Impractical, probably would cut your head off, but
yeah. How did you guys feel about? So my big question is, how did you guys feel about the kind of the supernatural elements? As in, that was one that stood out. Like she's incredibly talented with that tomahawk, but then the flowers, right? They've got this yellow flower that can lower your blood temperature. And like these other medicinal herbs that are incredibly effective for stuff. How did you guys think? Did you think it took it too far? Do you think they worked well?
I didn't even really think about it. I bought it. I was like, that's probably a real flower. Who knows? I don't know. But like, I don't know. The like Native Americans have that very spiritual side to them and everything like that with their history. I quite enjoyed it. Like, Grana, what do you think?
Oh, I was going to say, yeah, there's a suspension of disbelief there, as there is in almost every movie, but it's no more than aliens coming to Earth to hunt us. Like, I'm fine with it. The tomahawk on a string, like, I know I'm going to hurt myself if I go try that in the backyard, but they make it look cool. She's obviously skilled with it, and I didn't have any problem with the herbs. Like, I kind of enjoyed the Comanche connection to the land that they showed, where they're hunting and gathering at the start as well. Like, I thought that was all really cool and made me realize I probably don't know that much about Native American history as I should, or maybe I should learn about our Native people's history. Like, there's I don't know, it's cool. And but I enjoyed it. Like, I was happy to suspend my disbelief over those few things. It didn't worry me at all.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that aspect too, like their connection with the Earth. You compare the first half hour of this movie to the first half hour of Predator 2 with the worst shooting scene I've ever seen.
Hey, don't talk shit. Predator 2 is classic.
That opening shootout is horrible, man. You got that dude with the Uzis. Anyway, but I don't know. I found it never really took me out of it. Like, I thought, they are badass with tomahawks. Who knows? They probably are skilled with that weapon. I don't know, but yeah, it was really cool to watch though.
It raises an interesting question about our own ignorance, where so there's a theory with herbs, right, and general plants, that medicinal herbs and stuff that is often touted as working. Nowadays, it doesn't work. There's no evidence for it. But there's a lot of theories that, agriculture and like constant toiling of the land has deplenished the nutrients and the effect, like the quality. So that's why you go to some countries and the bread essentially, like, it doesn't have a strong gluten content. And people who are like celiac can report they eat sourdoughs in other countries. All this weird stuff. Where it's like because their farming practices are different. So that crossed my mind. I'm like, there is a possibility that there were these plants that were much more effective 300 years ago. But then you bring in 200 years of like battery farming, and basically the soil is just useless, and there's no that plant is 1/100th of its strength. And I don't know, like, but it's something that I'm like, maybe that could happen. And the same thing with the tomahawk. I'm like, maybe if you spend your whole life training with weapons, you can get that good. We don't do that anymore.
I mean, the other thing is there are plants that are effective medicines, but they're just called medicines now, right? Like you take them in a pill form, you don't grow them in your backyard. So I don't know. Like there's a bit of both.
Maybe that was methamphetamine plant. Maybe that's what that was.
Maybe it was an opioid. You never know.
Sure.
I really enjoyed the scene where she comes across all the skinned buffalo. And it's like, shit, the predator's been busy. And then she picks up the cigar and it's like, white man's here. Uh-oh. Manifest destiny.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a good it was a really good parallel because it never goes too far in that as the whole. It could have gone really heavy-handed, a bit like white man is the real predator.
Yeah, it didn't. Like I thought that's what like my note was right as soon as I saw that scene, but they don't like super push it. And
No,
I mean that plot line's maybe a little tired to an extent. Obviously, it's true, particularly in that case, but it's
The predator teams up with her at the end, and he's like, "You guys are monsters, horrible people."
Like, I did it. It crossed my mind. Like, it could have really gone down that and really leaned hard into it. It was like, the Native Americans are victims of predators in more than one sense, but it doesn't. It just includes enough to make it thematically resonant.
Yeah.
But it was terrifying seeing. Yeah, you see there's like these humps of like skin flesh. I'm like, oh crap! I forgot
It's
for a
like,
minute.
what are they wasting all of that anyway? Terrible.
I was like, "Where's the spine?" I was like, "Where is he going to have heaps of spines with all these skulls on them?" I still love that. I love that in the old films as well. But like the idea of them just pulling these skulls out with the spine attached, and like the way he holds up the wolf one, I'm just like, it's always badass. And like these freezing things to like, take away all the meat and stuff. I'm just like, oh, that's so cool. And then he hooks it on his backpack, and I'm like, oh, badass. It's just badass. I love it.
Yeah.
I just want to touch on. I kind of like they get back to it at the end of the film, but there are a bunch of times, in the first 40 minutes or hour, where I feel like it did a good job of subverting expectations. Like as soon as she gave that guy the medicine and she talked about it cooling his blood, I'm like, Predator's going to show up, kill all of the people carrying him, but not him. And I'm like, and then she'll figure that out. That didn't happen, obviously. Then when she fell into the mud and was all stuck in the mud, I was like, Predator's going to show up.
Yeah.
She's going to realize being in the mud cools her down and, you can't see her again. Doesn't happen. And I was like, okay. I felt like that's where it was going to happen. But obviously she does use the medicine later and catches onto it. But still, I felt like there were a few times where I was like, I know where this is going. And then it went in a different direction. But yeah.
Yeah. It was really good groundwork for all of it. Like you see all the pieces are there of how the film's going to go.
Yeah.
Like her whole journey is really, I think, really important to it. Like she's probably the only character in any of these Predator films that has any character, right? Besides survival, besides just we need to not die. She wants to be a dumb jack. Like she wants to be a warrior in a culture that doesn't really care about that for her, or doesn't believe she can do it.
Yeah. And
so she's got a real sense she wants to be this fighter, and that just you're invested from that pretty early. You get that she's good with medicine, but she's mad good with a tomahawk. You go, okay, I want to see her overcome this, and it becomes it's really satisfying then to see her take on the Predator. It's like, cool, this is twofold. It's survival, but it's also personal. Like it's just kind of like a writing little trick that's like, this is what you need. You need this investment to see the stakes here, that even if she doesn't die, she'll fail. I'm like, that's good. I'm rooting for Naru.
Yeah, and I enjoyed that I think we talked about it on the Predator pod, but it's kind of Home Alone in the jungle. She says she gets everything set up really well, and none of it comes down to her getting lucky or anything like that. Like, oh shit, she's going to get her head cut off by this shield. No, she's between the rocks. She knows that's coming. Like, she planned it all out really well, and it was good to. It was interesting to see her growth and see her learn her prey, and then put it all into action. It was fun.
Love the way she takes him out with his own mask. It's super cool. Really satisfying. And she cuts that dude's leg off, man, and uses him as bait. Oh, man.
She goes evil. It's good.
It's great.
I really enjoyed the Predator going to town on the Frenchman. Like, I thought that was fun to see, like, his raw power and just, like, slicing off heads with that shield was really cool. There was a lot of good moments.
That shield was so cool.
He throws the bear trap at the dude. That was so
good.
It
just explodes him.
He pulls the guy through the net, and he just slits
that
him
net.
into pieces. Yeah.
That was
it just disintegrates him, basically. It's nuts.
And the bullet bouncing off the helmet and shooting himself, that was good.
That was the best. He just stares at him down.
I wasn't sure what happened there. I thought it backfired or something. I was like, what? But okay, so it ricocheted, yeah.
It literally, because he just like sort of leans forward and stares, and it's really funny. The action scenes in this movie are so good. Like that big scene and her in the camp killing the few that are still there, and they're just very long takes. There's a lot of careful like choreography and stuff. It was really good to watch.
The dude pretending to be dead, and then he gets trod on, screams, gets his head cut off.
Yeah, that was pretty good. I enjoyed that there was a lot of long takes, and it wasn't a dialogue heavy movie either. Like I really appreciated just these long quiet moments. I think it worked really, really well. I mean, obviously there's a Comanche dub out there. Howard, do you guys feel like this movie would have worked if it had just been solely in Comanche? Get rid of the English. Let's just watch it with subtitles. Maybe have even less dialogue.
I feel like obviously mainstream wise, it wouldn't have. I don't think it gets as popular as it is, unfortunately. But then again, I don't know. Squid Game was super popular.
It's not the first time a movie's done this either. Like
no, but I would have really enjoyed it. I still enjoyed it as it was, but it's something that you obviously do notice when they're talking perfect English. But I would have really enjoyed watching it. It's just a shame that it's dubbed and not natively.
Yeah, it's I don't know. Like I thought back. Did you guys ever see Apocalypto?
No, but it's the same situation, isn't it?
It's entirely in. I think they're Mayans. So the main characters are Mayan, and they find either a different civilization, different South America or not. But it's all in the native Mayan language that it would have been. So it was very like rigorously done like that. So it was all subtitled, but all authentic like that. Not a dub, a real thing. So it was really like very ahead of its time for doing that back in 2006. And like I think it's a really good film, but I think that did impede it. But then at the same time, you get a film like Valkyrie with Tom Cruise, where they're supposed to be German and they all speak English with American accents, and everybody criticized that film. Was like, why the hell is that happening? We can read Germans, we can read subtitles. So I don't know. I feel like as a big film like Predator, it would have turned off the quote unquote, I don't know, average. Like, your general viewer who comes on is like, oh, Predator film, it's subtitled, I don't necessarily want to read this. And like, we consume movies different now, right? We often have things on the background while we're on our phones, especially as a streaming. Sure. You're not entirely there. Yeah. So I do wonder if it would have impeded its success. Like it just seems more like this is a big mainstream film. We don't want to deter that. And the thing, I guess, that sealed it for me for being effective, as much I would have preferred a Comanche version, like you said, natively done, not a dub. But by having the French speak French, it does a good job of like, hey, we're seeing these people in their perspective. It's not you're not like an objective viewer from outside. Yep. You are essentially Naru here, so you want to be able to understand her as best as you can.
Yep.
If the French also spoke English in this, I think it would be a real misstep and it would really affect it. But by having them sort of like, oh, this language is a big part of here, they're an other, but we are seeing the whole world through the Comanche here.
Yeah.
It worked a lot more for me. I think that makes it. That paid off.
It opens up with Comanche and then goes into like English, like what she said, and I feel like that's just through our eyes, it's been translated. I think that's the message that goes through. Same as Galadriel at the start of Lord of the Rings, starts talking in Elvish, and then
same with Valkyrie. Tom Cruise starts speaking German, then he's speaking English.
Oh, I need to hear that again. Yeah,
defend Valkyrie. That's what I say.
I don't mind that movie.
Yeah, it's actually not. It's not terrible. But anyway,
I just want to quickly bring up. She was a really good actress, Amber Midthunder. That's a cool name, but
it's probably the best name.
I thought she was really good. I thought she was really good. Conan, before we started recording, you brought up Hell or High Water, and it tickled my interest. Did you bring it up because she's in that?
No, but I did notice that when I was looking through her filmography, she has one small scene. Like, oh, nice.
Yeah. I believe she's the waitress or bank teller that's been interviewed by.
She's a bank teller who doesn't want to be there, and it's the one in that waitress scene. He just walks in and she's just sitting there on her phone. And she gets really scared. I haven't seen anything she's done.
No. She looked super familiar, and I was like, but I feel like she just looks like another actress that I know. But yeah, when I was going through filmography, I was like, oh my god, Conan's gonna love this. Hell or High Water.
No, it tickled me when I saw that.
I mean, it was I don't know. There's only so many Native American actors out there, I guess, and we do like we said that in those movies, you get some repeats, unfortunately.
Yeah, you got Gil Birmingham in every single film.
In everyone ever.
Yeah.
Like which makes this film more impressive again because all the stars are pretty good. Like Amber Midthunder is really, really good.
Yep.
Some of the other ones you can tell, like they're acting, they're not remarkable, but they're not. I think about Gran Torino. I love that film, but a lot of the Hmong actors in that are awful because, like, Clint Eastwood literally said, "I want people who've never acted." So he got all these people who had no experience, and you can tell this is sort of these clearly aren't all professionals, or they're very young professionals, but they were all really good. Like,
I thought her brother was great as well. I
Yeah.
enjoyed his performance and her mother and everything like that. But
yeah.
There's that scene where they're like they're carrying the guy who's wounded, and then they end up fighting the predator. Like there's some questionable acting there. Like that's where where it shows up a little bit that maybe they're not so experienced. But it didn't really take me out of the film.
No,
it was good. And she was excellent. She was so good.
Yeah. I'm expecting big things from this. I'm hoping this movie blows up and she's.
Would you guys want a Prey 2? A sequel to this, following her again, or you can't do that with Predator? Do you feel?
I would much prefer they move on to another time, to another place, to another Predator. And there is a question there, like how does that flintlock pistol end up back in the possession of the Predators?
Yep.
It's not really answered.
No,
do they exchange gifts when they come back, or do they decide to hunt her down?
Yeah. Or does she transform into a predator over time? Because it's the act of hunting that actually makes you an alien. They're not aliens at all. Like, we don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I think I would rather see a different timeline. I think it would be really hard to make Prey 2, like another Native American Predator film, and have it be fresh. Like we talked about, Predators was a really good sequel, but it treads a lot of the same ground as the original, and it's constantly like shadowed by that. I think where even though I really enjoyed Predators, the whole time I was like, this is still just a less good version of the original. And I feel like it would be kind of similar. Like you can't do heaps with it and be like, this is a whole new distinct change. It would be very, very similar. So I would,
I mean, part of why it works is because we're learning about the universe with the characters. Like we're learning about what these predators are capable of, because what this one's capable of is very different to what they're capable of in the other films. Like I think that's why this one works so well, to set it here again and have probably a very similar technology for the predator and stuff. Yeah, I think it detracts too much.
Definitely give me a samurai one. No, since you guys mentioned that, I can't stop thinking about it. Really, really cool.
Yeah.
All right, have we got anything else to say about the nitty gritty of this film?
Just touching again, cinematography was dope. There were so many shots in this film where I was like, oh, that's beautiful.
Amazing, right? Man.
And I loved the visual of the neon green war paint at the end. It's just blood, but like I really liked that visual. Obviously, that's on the poster and everything like that, but very cool visual. Yeah.
Yeah, no, like, I don't know if I have anything about the nitty gritty. Like just broad strokes. Everyone should see this film.
Yeah,
it's really good. And
let's rank it.
It is really good. So I guess if we look at Metacritic, it's got a rating of 70 overall, which is pretty favourable, pretty high. I think Rotten Tomatoes has got like 9.3 or something like that.
93, yeah.
Yeah, very, very high. How do you guys feel it fits in with the rest of the Predator films? Luke, you go first. You're going to have the most controversial opinion.
I had the controversial opinion with the original one, so I don't know my original ranking for that. But there's the quadrilogy, and then out of frame up here is Prey. Like here's the thing. I enjoyed some of those films for what they were. Some of them I didn't think held up. I quite liked Predators. That's the one with Adrian Brody, correct?
Yep.
Quite enjoyed that. Even had a guilty pleasure enjoying of the Predator.
Crazy. What's pleasure?
But Prey, I absolutely adored this film. It's one of my favorite films of the year. And I just like 20 minutes into this film, I was like, this is better than all the Predator movies already for me. Like, I'm way more invested. I'm way more interested. I was way more captivated. I couldn't not pause it for a second. I was just like wanting to watch it more. Yeah. So it's first by a long mile for me.
I would put this as second, I think.
Yeah.
Actually, I don't even know. I don't even think that's debatable. Like, as in, it's I guess better than all the sequels by probably a long mile. And I really enjoyed Predators and Predator 2. It's not as good. It's not better than the original though. You can't be better than.
Yeah, I think that's sacrilege. I don't think you can say that. I mean, I was tossing up, is it better than Predators? But the more we talked about it, yeah, it's better than Predators. Yeah. I can't think of the right word. And I don't mean what I say, but like this feels almost like the most competent film of them all. But I'm like, no, John McTiernan is an incredibly confident filmmaker. Like he's one of the best action filmmakers of all time. So I'm not going to say that. But this film does feel pretty distinct. Like the other three sequels are all very schlocky. Like as much as I say I like Predators 2, it feels really goofy. Predators has got a lot of tongue in cheek. It's Rodriguez, you know, it has real comedy. Whereas this is serious, and it's serious and a lot more mature, and it works so well. Like
so, the original Predator has 45% on Metacritic.
So that was my follow up from this. Like how films reviewing changes over time is a fascinating conversation because of that exact thing where in 20 years we might look back at this and no one will care about that film did nothing. That film had no impact. It was just an okay film that came out. And Predator is like that. At the time, it was like, this is a macho action film because people didn't get it. But as time went on, and you sort of understood what the 80s action films were, and we started to see like the actual competence of those films rather than just disregarding them as cheesy, mindless action. It's like Fast and Furious. People often like those movies are sucky, but eventually a long time they were like, oh no, Fast 4, Fast 5, they're actually really good action films. Man.
Goat. It's a great film. That's
what I mean. People actually start to realize, take away the baggage. And that's what Predator was. People didn't like it because it's an 80s action film, but it's so clever, it's so competent, and Predator is amazing. But you can't change the Metascore. Metascore doesn't get it justice.
Rotten Tomatoes has the original one at 80, so
that's more positive, but still wrong. Should be high.
What if Prey had like her doing like a handshake and she flexed her muscles? Would that put it above?
There needs to be a 30-second moment where there's several Comanche firing arrows into the jungle, just ripping trees to shreds, and
just trees, animals dying everywhere.
If she just come out and seen her brother, she's like, Tave, you son of a bitch!
Got you pushing too many pencils. All right.
Second best Predator film, though. This movie.
Yeah, I think you're right. Predators compared to this film feels very by the numbers. This one's taking some risks and doing something interesting. So, yep. All right. Well, Luke, you're our next trilogy. What are we going to be doing?
So,
sorry to spring this on you. I don't think I warned you ahead of time, but
no. We have discussed this. So, the next trilogy after this will be the Pierce Brosnan James Bond quadrilogy.
I think there's 4. I think that's right.
There's 4. We did Daniel Craig, the Bond movies a while back. I really enjoyed that episode, comparing the theme songs and the Bond girls and the Bond villains. So we'll do the ranking again and go to Pierce Brosnan. Obviously, films, there's not much competition with Pierce Brosnan's ones. There's probably only one good one, but hey, who knows?
It might be a sleeper. We don't know.
Time may favour some of those other
They may have aged like fine wine. We will soon find out.
Yep. So yeah, it'll be good.
All right, well, join us for the Pierce Brosnan Bond films next time. Thank you for joining us for The Good, the Bad, and the Worst. If you enjoyed this podcast, you might also enjoy our other podcast, Bonus XP. It's all about gaming and what's been happening in games in that week and interesting topics about games that we enjoy discussing. So join us for that. You can find that on all the same services you found this podcast. Find us on social media at Good, Bad, Worst and at Bonus XP. This podcast was brought to you by The Taste of Iron by C.V. Clarke.
If you
Very
like
good book.
Alternate history, horror, action, all of it. This is the Predator of books.
It's true. The Prey of books. Very, 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 very similar themes.
Predator does show up in it as well. No promises, I believe.
Check it out on Amazon. Thanks for joining us. And that was The Good, the Bad, the Worst. We'll catch you next time.
Peace.
Laters.